The phone call arrived precisely 30 seconds before Kong Hajun was scheduled to utter the two most significant, calculated words of his life. I do. The jarring, almost vulgar ringtone. A sound of the mundane intruding on the sacred, sliced through the cathedral's expectant silence like a sudden, tearing scream. 500 affluent guests, draped in a sea of custom Dior and impeccably tailored Armani, collectively pivoted their heads to stare. His bride, Jivan, the exquisitely packaged daughter of Korea's third richest conglomerate, froze mid-smile, her expression cracking like porcelain. The minister, mid-verse, saw his Bible visibly waver in his hands. But Hajun was immobilized by something far deeper than social paralysis. He couldn't move, couldn't draw breath, because the name glaring on his screen was completely unfamiliar, yet simultaneously felt ancient and irreversibly carved into his very bones. Seoul Memorial Hospital. Answer it. Something feral and primal clawed its way up his throat and screamed the command. Answer it right now. Hajun Ji-won whispered, her perfectly contoured and made-up face creasing with palpable confusion. What in God's name are you doing? He answered the call. Right there, at the altar, bathed in the judgmental gaze of everyone who mattered. Is this Kong Hajun? A woman's voice? Sharp, urgent, and professional. Immediately demanded his attention. Yes. Who is this? I'm calling from the Seoul Memorial Hospital Emergency Department. We have a patient here, Ariana Mitchell. She's in critical condition, possible brain hemorrhage. We found your contact information listed as her emergency contact and also, sir, listed as her husband in our old system from 6 years ago. Sir, are you family? We need immediate consent for emergency brain surgery or she is going to die within the hour. The meticulously constructed world around him stopped spinning. The vast, vaulted space of the cathedral went utterly silent. Ariana. The name detonated inside his skull like a high-grade fragmentation bomb, scattering vicious, sharp fragments of something. Memories. Maybe. Feelings. Definitely. But nothing complete, nothing whole he could hold on to. Just the overwhelming, visceral certainty that this single, foreign name meant absolutely everything he had been missing. Where is she? His voice came out choked, a strangled, raw sound he barely recognized. Seoul Memorial Emergency Surgical Wing. Sir, we truly need you to come now. She's been asking for you. She keeps saying your name. Hajun let the phone slip from his numb fingers. It clattered against the ornate marble steps. He looked at Jivan, her beauty now twisted into a mask of confusion and betrayal. He looked at his father, seated in the front row, whose meticulously preserved face was already swelling and turning a terrifying shade of purple with rage. He looked at his mother, frozen like a statue in yards of bespoke designer silk. He looked at the 500 witnesses to his perfect, calculated, financially sound, and utterly loveless future. Then he ran. Hajun! His father's roar, a sound that usually controlled boardrooms and international markets, shook the very foundations of the cathedral. Kong Hajun, you stop right now. If you walk out that door, you're finished. Do you hear me? Finished. But Hajun was already sprinting. His $1,000 Italian leather shoes slipped precariously on the highly polished marble floor as he barreled toward the distant exit doors. Behind him, the meticulously curated order of the wedding dissolved into instant, spiraling chaos. Gasps, shrieks of outrage. Jivan's mother fainting dramatically onto a velvet pew. A blinding storm of camera flashes erupted as every smartphone in the building began recording his swift, catastrophic destruction. None of it mattered. Ariana was dying. And even though he could not summon a single coherent memory of who she was, every desperate cell in his body was screaming at him, demanding he get to her immediately. Before we proceed with the consequence of this irreversible choice, I need you to do something for me. If you have ever been forced to make a snap decision that altered the entire trajectory of your life, if you have ever felt a connection so profound it defied all logic and explanation, if you believe some people are intrinsically worth burning your whole safe world down for, drop a comment right now telling me where you're watching this from. And hit that subscribe button because the story you are about to hear will first shatter your heart, and then attempt to mend it back together in ways you never could have anticipated. This is a tale of forgotten love, unbearable loss, and the devastating consequences of the memories we are forced to bury simply to survive. Now let's go back to the frenzied start of it all. Ha-Jun's black Mercedes S-Class screamed its way through the dense, unforgiving Seoul traffic. He ran intersection after intersection, the blaring horn cutting through taxis and delivery scooters. His hands were shaking so violently against the leather steering wheel that he could barely maintain his grip. His phone, which he had tossed onto the passenger seat, was exploding with calls and furious texts. His father, his mother, the frantic Jivan, his chief assistant, the entire board of directors, the hyperventilating wedding planner. He ignored every single one of them. His mind was a scorching, white void of pure panic. Ariana Mitchell. The name echoed, an insistent, painful drumbeat. Why could he not remember? Why did it feel as though someone had taken a sharp knife and meticulously carved a deep, jagged hole precisely where a year of his memories should have resided? He screeched the high-performance car into the hospital parking lot, abandoning it carelessly in a restricted loading zone near the emergency entrance. He burst through the automatic doors. A young nurse, startled, tried to intercept him. "Sir, you can't just..." "Ariana Mitchell. Where is she?" He gripped the nurse's shoulders, not with violence, but with desperate, raw urgency. "Please, they said she is dying. Where is she?" The nurse's professional expression softened slightly, replaced by concern. "Are you Ha-Jun? The husband?" Yes, the lie came out automatically, a reflexive response. Or was it a lie? The hospital had him listed as her husband from 6 years ago. What on earth did that mean? 4th floor, surgical wing. "But sir, there's a child. A little girl. She came in with the patient. She's in the waiting room and she's terrified. Someone needs to..." Ha-Jun was already running, his expensive jacket flying open as he sprinted toward the elevators. 4th floor. He had to reach the 4th floor immediately. The elevator crawl felt like an eternity compressed into a few agonizing seconds. When the doors finally hissed open, he burst into the antiseptic silence of the surgical wing and saw her instantly through a large window pane. A little girl, perhaps 5, maybe 6 years old. Beautiful, with warm brown skin, a riot of curly black hair tied into 2 perfect puffs, and tears that streamed unchecked down her face as a comforting nurse attempted to soothe her. She was wearing a simple yellow dress, covered in brightly printed sunflowers. Something deep inside Ha-Jun's chest cracked wide open, a soundless, terrifying fracture. He knew that dress. He didn't know how, but the pattern was deeply familiar. Yellow sunflowers. Ariana loves sunflowers. How did he know that? The little girl looked up, her tear-filled gaze meeting his through the glass. Her hazel eyes, the exact color of his own, widened dramatically. Then she was scrambling wildly off the stiff plastic chair and running toward the elevator doors. The nurse called after her, startled. "Appa!" The Korean word for daddy shattered something irreversible inside him. "Appa! You came. Mama said you would come." She slammed headlong into his legs, wrapping her small, fierce arms around him, sobbing wetly into the pristine fabric of his custom wedding pants. Ha-Jun stood frozen in the hallway, the world spinning. "Appa! Daddy!" This child was claiming him. "I don't..." he began, his hands hovering uselessly above her small head, completely unsure what gesture of comfort was appropriate. "I don't understand." "You're late," the little girl sobbed, the accusation heavy. "Mama's been waiting so long. She said you'd come back when you remembered." "Did you remember? Did you finally remember us?" "Remember?" Ha-Jun's head spun violently. "Remember what?" A doctor, wearing surgical scrubs, approached them quickly, his face serious. "Mr. Kong, we need to move fast. Your wife has a subdural hematoma, severe internal bleeding in her brain. We need your signed consent to operate immediately." "Wife?" Ha-Jun's voice cracked audibly. "According to our records from 6 years ago, yes. You are listed as her legal spouse and primary emergency contact." The doctor thrust a clipboard and a pen at him. "We need your signature right now or she dies." Hajuin's hands were shaking uncontrollably as he scrawled his name onto the form. He didn't understand any of this devastating situation, but the truth didn't matter right now. If Ariana was dying, if this small, beautiful child was crying for her mother, he would sign anything they put in front of him. The doctor snatched the clipboard and rushed away. Hajuin looked down at the child, still clinging to his legs. She had stopped crying, but her entire small body was trembling violently. "What's your name?" he asked softly, finally lowering a hesitant hand to rest gently on her head. She looked up, her familiar hazel eyes meeting his. "Juna. But Mama calls me Jia. You picked my name. Don't you remember?" Hajuin's throat closed painfully. "I'm sorry. I don't remember." Jia's face crumpled instantly. "Mama said you might not. She said you got hurt and forgot us. But she promised that if I was patient, if I was a good girl, you'd remember someday." "When did I get hurt?" "5 years ago." Jia's small, resolute hand gripped his pants tighter. "You fell down, hit your head really bad. The doctors said you might not remember things. Mama cried a lot. Then you went away and didn't come back. 5 years ago." Hajuin's mind raced, finally connecting the horrifying dots. 5 years ago, he had been in a severe car accident. He had woken up in the hospital with a complete, terrifying gap, no memory of the preceding year. His doctors had assured him it was a normal, temporary trauma response, suggesting the memories might return eventually. They never did. His family, his cold, controlling family, had told him he'd merely been working too hard, overly stressed. They insisted there was nothing of importance he had forgotten, just tiresome business deals and mandatory social parties. They had lied. They had known about Ariana. They had known about Jia. And they had ruthlessly hidden it all from him. "Can I stay with you?" Jia's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm scared. The nurses are nice, but I want my appa." Something fundamental in Hajuin's chest shifted, settled. This child was calling him daddy. This child had his eyes. This child knew him even if he didn't know himself. Yes, he heard himself say the word firm and unexpected. "Yes, you can stay with me." He gently picked her up. She immediately wrapped her arms securely around his neck and buried her face into his shoulder. She smelled faintly of strawberries and felt impossibly light and fragile in his embrace. They sat in the sterile surgical waiting room. Jia eventually succumbed to exhaustion, falling asleep against his chest. Hajuin simply held her, staring blankly at the institutional wall, desperately trying to make sense of the vast, terrifying crater where a crucial year of his memory should have been. His phone vibrated violently. His father. He ignored it. It buzzed again. Jivan. He ignored it. His chief assistant. He finally turned the expensive device off completely. An hour passed. 2, 3. Hajuin didn't move. He just held the sleeping child and waited. He prayed to gods he had always dismissed. He made desperate promises he had no business making. Finally, the doctor emerged. Hajuin stood carefully, gently shifting Jia so she remained asleep. "Mr. Kong." The doctor's face was grave, etched with exhaustion. "The surgery was successful. We stopped the bleeding and relieved the pressure on her brain. But the next 24 hours are critically important. She is in a medically induced coma. We won't know the extent of the damage until she wakes up." "If she wakes up," Hajuin repeated, the fear sharp. "Can I see her?" "Yes, but..." The doctor hesitated, lowering his voice. "Mr. Kong, I don't know what your personal situation is. I don't know why you've been apart for so long. But that woman in there, she kept a photograph of you in her wallet, worn soft at the edges, like she's looked at it 1,000 times a day. And when she was conscious, just before the seizure started, she kept saying your name, kept asking if you'd come. Whatever happened between you two, she never stopped loving you." Hajuin felt the last vestiges of resistance break inside his chest. "Take me to her, please." The doctor led him down the hall to ICU room 7. Through the small observation window, Hajuin could see her. Ariana. She was surrounded by tubes, wires, and monitors beeping relentlessly. Her face was slightly swollen from the trauma and surgery, But even like this, even broken and unconscious, she registered as the most profoundly beautiful thing he had ever witnessed. And he still didn't remember her. Not one single moment, not one solitary memory. Just this overwhelming, devastating certainty that she was his, that he had lost something precious and irreplaceable, that he had been walking around with a gaping hole in his soul for 5 years and never even known it. He pushed open the door, still carrying the sleeping Jia. He sat heavily in the chair beside the bed, took Ariana's hand in his free one. It was smaller than he expected, delicate. There was a thin white scar tracing across her palm. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the sound thick with unshed tears. "I don't know what I did. I don't know how I lost you, but I'm here now. I'm not leaving. Not again." Ariana didn't respond. She just lay there, breathing artificially, silently fighting for her life. Jia stirred softly in his arms, mumbled something that sounded distinctly like, "Mama," and settled back into sleep. Hajuan sat there, holding both of them. His forgotten wife, his daughter he never knew existed, and wondered with a sickening dread how the hell he was supposed to fix a past he couldn't even remember. Morning arrived with the force of an armored attack. The door to the ICU room slammed open, echoing violently in the sterile space. Chairman Kong stood silhouetted in the doorway, flanked by 2 towering security guards and radiating a cold, absolute fury that seemed to make the air crackle. Hajuan didn't flinch from his chair. Jia was still deeply asleep against his chest, one tiny hand clutching the fabric of his shirt. "Get up." His father's voice was lethal, pure ice. "We are leaving this instant." "No, no." His father's face immediately turned a deep, alarming crimson. "Do you have any idea the extent of the damage you've caused? The wedding was broadcast live. 50 million people watched you abandon your bride at the altar. The company stock price dropped 7% in 1 hour. The Lee family is threatening to pull out of the merger. Our competitors are circling us like predatory sharks. And you sit here holding some woman and a child who... That is enough." Hajuan's voice was quiet, but it was deadly, laced with a threat his father had never heard before. "Lower your voice. My daughter is sleeping." "Your daughter?" His father laughed, a bitter, vicious sound. "You don't even remember her existence. Then tell me." Hajuan finally met his father's enraged eyes, the challenge unyielding. "Tell me what you did, because I know you did something. 5 years ago when I woke up from that accident, you told me I'd forgotten nothing important. You lied." His father's jaw clenched, a muscle twitching violently near his ear. "We did what was necessary. That woman was destroying your future. You were obsessed with her, Hajuan. You threw away important business deals just to be with her. You talked about leaving the company entirely to open some ridiculous, idiotic photography studio. You were not thinking clearly. So you what? Made me forget her? The accident did that on its own. We simply," his father paused, correcting himself with chilling precision, "chose not to remind you." "Where is she?" Hajuan's mother swept into the room, impeccably dressed in the same designer silk, her couture handbag clutched like a dangerous weapon. "Where is this woman who has been poisoning my son's mind and ruining our legacy?" "She's right here." Hajuan gestured calmly toward Ariana's unconscious form. "And if you wake my daughter with your screeching, I will personally have security remove you from this hospital. Before this situation escalates into complete pandemonium, I need to ask you something vital. Have you ever had someone you trusted look you in the eyes and tell you your deepest feelings weren't real? That your most cherished memories were incorrect? That the person you loved above all others didn't matter in the face of money and power? If you have ever had to fight tooth and nail for something everyone told you to simply give up on, hit that subscribe button right now, because Hajuan is about to learn the full, devastating truth about what his family stole from him, and you will not want to miss a single transformative moment. His mother's face went white with incandescent rage. "How dare you speak to me that way? We are your family. We raised you. We gave you everything you own. You took everything." Hajuan's voice finally broke, raw with 5 years of suppressed grief. "You took my wife. You took my daughter. 5 years of their lives. 5 years of mine. She was a nobody." His mother shrieked, the sound echoing off the walls. A photographer's assistant from America with no family, no connections, nothing tangible to offer our family line. You met her at some low-class gallery opening and completely lost your mind. We were finalizing your engagement to the Park family when you announced you'd married her in secret. I married her? Ha-Jun felt the world tilt precariously. In some fly-by-night courthouse in America during a business trip, his father's voice dripped with contempt and dismissal. You brought her back to Seoul and actually expected us to accept it. When we refused, you threatened to leave the company forever. Then the accident happened, and we recognized a golden opportunity to fix your colossal mistake. Fix my mistake? Ha-Jun stood tall, carefully cradling Ja against his chest. You mean erase the woman I loved? The child I made? The life I freely chose for myself? The life that would have destroyed you? His mother insisted vehemently. Look at her, Ha-Jun. Really look. She is not one of us. She never will be. Thank God for that. Ha-Jun's words were quiet, definitive, and final. Because I don't want to be one of you anymore. His father stepped forward, his face twisted into a grotesque mask of fury. You ungrateful, spoiled. Get out. Ha-Jun's voice cut through the room like a honed blade. Both of you. Get out before I call the hospital security. If you choose her, you lose everything. His father's voice shook with his monumental effort to regain control. Your position, your entire inheritance, your family name. I already lost everything. Ha-Jun looked down at Ariana, still unconscious, still fighting for every breath. 5 years ago when you stole them from me. Now I'm just taking it back. His parents retreated, their threats and fury echoing viciously down the long hallway. Ja woke up, rubbing her sleepy eyes with the back of her small hand. Appa, who were those angry people? No one important, sweetheart. Ha-Jun smoothed her soft hair. Are you hungry? Should we find some breakfast? Can we eat here with Mama? Yes, we're not leaving Mama. They ate vending machine sandwiches and lukewarm juice in the ICU room. Ja told him stories about her life. About the small, cramped apartment in Edie where they lived. About her school where she was diligently learning to read. About how Mama worked 2 exhausting jobs. Taking photos at weddings and teaching English part-time, just to make painful ends meet. Do you know why Mama came to the hospital? Ja asked him, swinging her legs slowly from the chair. No, sweetheart. What happened? She was taking photos at a wedding. A very fancy one. She said she saw you there, and then she got dizzy. Then she fell down the big stairs and hit her head really hard. Ha-Jun's blood went instantly cold. My wedding. Ariana had been working at my wedding. Ja nodded earnestly. She didn't want to go. She was crying before we left the house. But we needed the money. Mama always says we need the money. The guilt crashed over him like a violent, inescapable wave. Ariana had been forced to work his wedding, had seen him moments away from marrying someone else, and had literally fallen and nearly died while he stood oblivious at the altar. A nurse entered to check Ariana's vitals and adjust a monitor. You should really go home, she said kindly. Get some rest. We'll call you immediately if anything changes. I'm not leaving. Sir, you've been here for over 12 hours straight. I'm not leaving. The nurse, seeing the resolve in his eyes, quietly left the room. Ja climbed into Ha-Jun's lap and stared intently at her mother's still face. Appa, will you tell me about before? About when you and Mama were together. Ha-Jun's throat tightened painfully. I don't remember, Ja. I'm so sorry. Mama has photos at home. Lots of them. She keeps them in a box under her bed. She looks at them when she thinks I'm asleep. She cries sometimes. What kind of photos? You and her being happy. Jia's voice was wistful. You're always smiling in them. Mama says you had the best smile in the whole world. Ha-Jun felt something profound and aching crack within his chest. Can you tell me about them? The photos. There's one where you're both at the beach. Mama's laughing really hard, and you're looking at her like she's completely made of sunshine. There's another one at a park with pretty cherry blossoms. You're taking her picture, and she's trying to take yours at the same time. Ja smiled faintly at the memory. And there's one where Mama's sleeping, and you're just watching her with this soft, quiet face. That's my favorite one. Why? Because you look like you do now when you look at her. Hajun glanced at Ariana's unconscious form. Was Jia right? Did he look at this woman he couldn't remember with the same deep, encompassing affection he'd felt when he could? Over the next 3 grueling days, Hajun refused to leave the hospital. He sent his assistant to Ariana's tiny apartment to retrieve clothes and, most importantly, the box of photos Jia had mentioned. When the box arrived, he opened it with shaking, unsteady hands. The photographs were instantly, emotionally devastating. There he was, younger, visibly happier, completely and utterly in love. Ariana in his arms beside the Han River. Both of them doubled over laughing at some street food festival stall. Him patiently teaching her to use his complex, expensive camera equipment. Her attempting to teach him ridiculous dance moves in their small apartment. Every single photo radiated an overwhelming, pure joy. The kind of uncomplicated happiness he couldn't remember ever having felt in his current, constrained life. There were other, smaller items in the box as well. Movie ticket stubs, 2 perfectly dried, pressed sunflowers, a cocktail napkin with "I love you" scrawled quickly in his own handwriting, and, at the bottom, a small, slightly yellowed envelope addressed simply to Hajun, still sealed. His hands trembled violently as he ripped it open. The letter inside was dated 5 years ago, barely 2 weeks after his accident. "My love," it began, written in Ariana's familiar, elegant handwriting. "I don't know if you'll ever actually read this. Your family is here. They say you don't remember me at all. They say the accident took away our entire year together. They are telling me it's better this way, that I should quietly let you go, that you have a bright, perfect future, and that I am just a financial and social burden holding you back. Maybe they are right. Maybe I am being terribly selfish wanting you to struggle to remember. But Hajun, we were so happy. We had real plans. A little photography studio together, a small house with a thriving garden, children. We were going to build an entire life. When I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks ago, I was terrified but so incredibly excited. I was going to tell you the day of the accident. Now, you don't even know who I am. Your mother offered me money to disappear. A large sum of money. Enough to raise our baby comfortably. Enough so that I would never have to worry about rent or food. All I have to do is sign papers agreeing to never contact you again. To never tell you about the pregnancy. To let you live your life without the burden of a wife and child you don't remember, and who they have made you forget. I'm going to take it. Not because I don't love you. I love you too much, but because I refuse to trap you in a life you didn't choose and cannot recall. If you ever remember, if you ever miraculously come looking for us, I'll be waiting. But I won't force you to be with someone your family made you forget. Our daughter deserves better than a father who is only here out of obligation. I'm sorry, my love. I'm so sorry for all of this. I will love you until my very last breath. Ariana. Hajun read the letter 3 times. Then a 4th. By the 5th reading, he was weeping silent, wrenching tears that felt like they had been trapped inside him, pressurized and painful, for 5 agonizing years. His family hadn't just conveniently made him forget. They had paid Ariana a king's ransom to voluntarily disappear. They had stolen his choice to be a husband and a father, robbing him of 5 priceless years with his wife and daughter. Jia was asleep in the corner chair, curled up under a thin hospital blanket. Ariana was still unconscious, her monitors beeping out a steady rhythm. Hajun stood up slowly and walked to her bedside, took her hand. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the sound raw and thick with guilt. "I'm sorry I forgot you. I'm sorry I let them take you from me 5 years ago. I'm sorry you had to raise our daughter alone while I lived in blissful, selfish ignorance. I'm sorry for every moment of pain and struggle you endured because of my absence." Her hand twitched beneath his, a flicker so slight it was barely perceptible, yet it felt like a seismic shift. It was the first voluntary movement she'd made in 3 agonizing days. "Ariana." Hajun leaned closer, his chest aching. "Can you hear me, my love? Squeeze my hand if you can hear my voice." Silence. Then an infinitesimal response, a whisper of pressure against his palm. She was there. She was fighting. After 72 hours lost in the shadow of a coma, Ariana was finally waking up. The change in the monitors was instantaneous and dramatic, causing the medical team to surge into the room. Hajuin was abruptly shoved aside as a frenzy of doctors and nurses swarmed Ariana's bedside, checking neurological responses, shining bright lights into her eyes, and barking out complex medical jargon that sounded like a foreign language. The commotion startled Jia, who had been curled up asleep in the chair. "Is Mama okay? Is she dying?" Jia's small voice was sharp with fear, immediately followed by racking sobs. Hajuin pulled her close, shielding her eyes from the chaotic scene. "No, sweetheart. She's waking up. Mama's waking up right now." It took another hour, the longest and most torturous 60 minutes of Hajuin's life, before the room quieted. He watched through the pane of glass as Ariana's eyelids fluttered open, revealing eyes swimming with confusion and panic. She immediately fought the uncomfortable breathing tube, thrashing weakly as primal fear took over. The doctors had to administer a gentle sedative to calm her enough to safely remove the ventilator. Finally, they signaled him back inside. Jia immediately broke free, running to the edge of the bed. "Mama, you're awake. I was so scared." Ariana's eyes, still unfocused, found her daughter. Her hand, weak and trembling, lifted slowly to cup Jia's tear-stained cheek. "Baby," she croaked, her voice rough and shredded from the tube. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, Mama. Appa's been taking care of me." Ariana's gaze lifted, shifting past Jia to Hajuin, who stood at the foot of the bed. In that instant, something profound and devastating shattered across her features. A chaotic collision of pain, love, agonizing longing, and weary resignation. It all crashed over her face in the space of a single heartbeat. "You came," she whispered, the sound barely audible. "Even though you don't remember me, you still came here." Hajuin moved swiftly to her other side, standing opposite Jia. "I came and Ariana, He stopped, the thousands of words he needed inadequate and impossible to arrange. Where did he even begin to articulate 5 years of lost history and immediate, crushing regret? "You should go," Ariana said quietly, looking away, her voice firmer now. "You have a wedding to get back to, a life of wealth and position. I'm sorry we interrupted it. The wedding is over." "What?" I ran out. Hajuin's voice was rough, edged with the metallic taste of adrenaline and disbelief. 30 seconds before I was supposed to say, "I do," the hospital called. "I left Jaiwan standing at the altar of that ridiculous cathedral and I came here." Ariana's eyes widened with genuine horror. "Hajuin, no. No, you can't have done that. Your family, the company, everything you worked for." "I didn't work for anything," he snapped, his words harsh. "I've been sleepwalking through someone else's life for 5 years. A life my family built entirely on calculated lies. I found your letter, the one you wrote 5 years ago, explaining everything. I know what they did. I know what they stole from us." Tears began to trace paths down Ariana's face. "It doesn't matter now. You don't remember any of it. How can we possibly fix something when you don't even know what we had? Then tell me." Hajuin reached across the bed, grasping her hand tightly. "Tell me everything that happened. Help me remember you." "It doesn't work like that, Hajuin." Ariana's voice broke on a sob. "The doctors said your memories might never come back. We can't build a life on what used to be. So we'll build a new one. Asterisk 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 self-promotion / pacing break asterisk asterisk asterisk. The next paragraph is a placeholder often found in serialized fiction to build suspense and drive engagement. It must be integrated smoothly but kept in character. Listen closely, because this is the moment where everything irrevocably changes. If you've ever lost something precious and fought with everything you have to reclaim it, if you've ever truly believed that love is worth fighting for even when the odds are impossible, I need you to subscribe right now. Hit that button because what happens next will fundamentally make you believe in second chances, in a love that survives even when the memories don't. Don't dare miss what's coming. Ariana shook her head weakly, a gesture of deep weariness. You have a fiancé, a powerful family, an entire company to run. You can't throw it all away for a woman you don't remember and a child you didn't know existed 3 days ago. Watch me. Hajuin's voice was pure steel. I already did. Over the next 2 days, as Ariana steadily recovered, Hajuin finally learned the truth he'd been denied. She told him everything in quiet, measured tones. She described how they'd met at a bustling gallery opening where she was working as a lowly assistant photographer. How he, the young heir, had been instantly and irrevocably drawn to her sharp wit and independent spirit. They spent hours talking about abstract art, the messiness of life, and their improbable dreams for the future. He'd asked her out 17 times before she finally acquiesced, stubbornly believing that billionaires only wanted a trophy, and she flatly refused to be one. You were so incredibly persistent, Ariana said, a small, genuine smile curving her lips as she sat propped up slightly in the hospital bed. You sent flowers to the gallery every single day for 2 weeks straight. Not expensive, ostentatious roses, but sunflowers. You remembered I'd mentioned loving them once, fleetingly, in passing conversation. Hajuin looked down at Jia, who was wearing a bright yellow dress embroidered with sunflowers. I remembered, he whispered, realization dawning. When I saw Jia wearing that dress at the docks, something deep inside me knew the truth. I couldn't understand it logically, but I knew. Ariana continued, detailing their whirlwind romance. He took her to hidden restaurants and secret, overgrown gardens. He taught her how to truly see the soul behind a camera lens, not just the surface image. Crucially, she told him about his grandmother, the only family member who had wholeheartedly approved and loved Ariana immediately. Grandmother, Hajuin breathed, stunned. She's been so cold to me the past 5 years. Distant. I thought she was just disappointed in my business decisions or my choice of fiancé. She was heartbroken. Ariana corrected softly. She loved us together. She adored Jia. I sent her photos every single year on Jia's birthday. She sent money, too, even though I always told her not to take the risk. She's the only one from your entire family who never forgot. What else? Hajuin was desperate now, his mind reeling as the pieces clicked into place. What else did we sacrifice? Everything. Ariana's eyes were distant, lost in the bittersweet memories. You quit your vice president position. You told your father you were done living his imposed dreams. We were going to open a photography studio together, Sunflower Studios. You were going to shoot artistic, abstract pieces. I was going to handle the portraits and weddings. We already had names picked out for our future children. Tears welled in Hajuin's eyes, thick with senseless loss. I left all that. For what? A sterile corner office and a loveless arranged marriage? You didn't leave it. You forgot it. There's a crucial difference. Tell me about the accident. Hajuin's voice was rough with demanding curiosity. Tell me what truly happened that day. Ariana was silent for a long moment, gathering her strength. You were driving to meet me. We were going to tell your parents I was pregnant together, face them as a united, unbreakable front. But your father called you while you were on the road. He said your grandmother had suddenly collapsed and that you needed to come to the hospital immediately. You were speeding, consumed by worry, when a heavy truck deliberately ran a red light and hit you. And my grandmother? She was perfectly fine. She was never sick. It was a complete, calculated lie to get you alone on the road where they could separate us. Ariana's voice hardened with ancient anger. When you woke up 3 weeks later with absolute amnesia, your father told me it was a sign. That God or fate was giving both of us a way out. That you could have your real life back. And you believed him? I believed you deserved a choice, Hajuin. Ariana met his gaze, her own raw and pleading. You didn't remember me. You didn't remember choosing me for forever. How could I morally force you into a marriage and a fatherhood you didn't remember wanting? So, I took the money they offered and disappeared into a new life. How much? Ariana flinched, pulling her hand away slightly. Does it truly matter now? How much did they pay you to give up your husband? $5 million. She said the figure quietly, her shame obvious. It was enough to raise Jia comfortably, to give her everything she'd need, private school tuition, good health care, a stable home without the chaos of your family's war. I truly thought I was doing the right thing for our child. You were pregnant and alone, and my family ruthlessly manipulated you. Hajuin's jaw clenched so tightly he felt pain. This isn't your fault, Appa. Jia, who had been coloring quietly in the corner, approached the bed now, her brow furrowed. Why are you and Mama crying? Because we're talking about sad things that happened a long time ago, sweetheart. Hajuin gently pulled her onto his lap. But they're getting better now. Are you going to stay with us? Jia's voice was small and hopeful. Forever? Hajuin looked directly at Ariana, his eyes holding a promise. Yes, if your mama will let me. Hajuin. Ariana started, her tone pleading. You don't have to do this out of some misplaced sense of guilt or obligation to a memory. I'm not. He shifted Jia to his other knee so he could recapture Ariana's hand. I've read your letter 50 times. I've looked through every grainy photo. I've listened to Jia's innocent stories of our past life. And you're right, I don't remember. I don't remember falling in love with you the first time. I don't remember our first kiss or our quiet wedding or any of the moments captured in those photos. Then why are you staying? Because I'm falling in love with you right now. Hajuin's voice was fierce and unwavering. The woman who worked 2 grueling jobs to raise our daughter alone. The woman who kept my photo worn and faded from constant viewing. The mother who protected our child even when she was dying on the floor of a warehouse. The woman who is sitting here trying to give me an honorable escape route, even though I know she still loves me. How could I possibly not fall for that? Ariana was crying fully now, deep, cleansing sobs. But I'm not the same person you married. 5 years of constant struggle changed me, hardened me, maybe even damaged me. Good, because I am not the same person either. Hajuin squeezed her hand. A solid anchor. We can't go back to the past, but maybe, just maybe, we can go forward. We can build something entirely new. You, me, and Jia. What do you say? The door burst open without warning. Hajuin's assistant, Miho, rushed in, his face ghostly pale and slick with sweat. Sir, I am so sorry to interrupt, but it is urgent. Your father, he's already done something drastic. What did he do? Hajuin stood slowly, settling Jia back into the chair. He's calling an emergency board meeting tonight. He's moving to have you declared mentally incompetent, legally removed from the company completely. He has 2 certified doctors willing to testify that you are having a dangerous psychological break due to amnesia and stress. If he succeeds, you lose everything, your shares, your voting rights, your position, everything. When is the meeting? 6 o'clock. 2 hours from now. Ariana grabbed Hajuin's hand, her terror evident. Don't go, Hajuin. It's a deliberate trap. Your father just wants you there so he can publicly humiliate you in front of the entire board. Let him try. Hajuin's voice was suddenly cold, perfectly controlled. I have a few crucial things I need to say to them, too. He turned to his assistant. Call my lead corporate lawyer. Tell him to meet me at the boardroom with the necessary documents ready for immediate signing. I'm making some fundamental changes to the structure of Kong Enterprises. What kind of changes, sir? The kind that end my father's reign for good. Hajuin looked down at Ariana, his resolve hardening into conviction. I told you I was done living their life. Time to prove it. Hajuin, please think clearly about this. I have 5 years of my life were brutally stolen. I refuse to let them take another minute. He kissed Jia's forehead, his lips lingering. Stay with your mama. I'll be back soon. Promise? Jia's voice was small, mirroring the fear in her mother's eyes. I promise, sweetheart. Hajuin met Ariana's terrified gaze, his eyes calm and resolute. I am not running anymore. Not from them. Not from you. And definitely not from the life we should have had. He left the hospital, still wearing the blood-stained, rumpled tuxedo from his failed wedding. He wanted them to see it. Let them see exactly what their lies had cost. Let them see what they had done. The boardroom at Kong Enterprises was oppressively packed when Hajuin arrived just minutes before 6. His father sat arrogantly at the head of the table, smug and confident. His mother was there, too, along with 12 key board members, 2 unfamiliar doctors in suits, and Jivan, his abandoned bride, sitting stiffly in the corner with conspicuously red, tear-filled eyes. Hajun walked in, and every conversation instantly ceased. The silence was absolute. "Thank you all for coming," his father began, his voice smooth and oily. "We are here tonight because my son has suffered a psychological break. As several of you witnessed, he abandoned his wedding for a woman who claims to be his wife from a past he conveniently can't remember. The doctors here will testify that he is delusional, unstable, and unequivocally unfit to lead." "I'm not delusional." Hajun's voice cut through the heavy air, sharp as glass. "I'm awake. For the first time in 5 years, I am actually awake." He pulled out a thick folder his lawyer had provided, dropping it heavily onto the mahogany table. Inside was everything. Medical records from his accident, the copied letter from Ariana, official bank records documenting the $5 million payoff, and transcripts of emails between his parents discussing how to keep his memories suppressed. "You want to declare me incompetent? Fine. But first, let's talk about criminal fraud, conspiracy, severe emotional manipulation, and let's talk about how you stole 5 years of my life and the life of my daughter." "Hajun," his father's voice dropped, dangerous and warning. "You don't know what you're doing right now." Actually, Hajun smiled, a cold, empty gesture. "For the first time in 5 years, I know exactly what I'm doing. I am taking my life back." Hajun spread the documents across the expansive conference table like lethal weapons. Bank statements, detailed medical records, and private investigator reports he'd commissioned in the frantic past 48 hours. Every damning piece of evidence of his family's elaborate deception was laid bare for the powerful board to see. "5 years ago, I had a car accident." Hajun's voice was steady and glacial. "What this board doesn't know is that the accident was not random negligence. My father orchestrated a fake family emergency to get me alone on the road, away from my wife, away from witnesses, and vulnerable." "That is absolutely absurd," his father sputtered, finally showing signs of panic. "You're proving my point. These are clearly delusions." "The truck driver who hit me," Hajun interrupted, his eyes fixed solely on his father, "received $200,000 deposited into his personal account 3 days after the collision from a shell company traced directly back to Kong Enterprises. I have the receipts and the wire transfers right here." The board members, suddenly rapt and deeply interested, leaned forward, craning their necks. His father's face had gone the color of ash. "When I woke up with no memory of the previous year, you told me I'd forgotten nothing important, just stress and overwork." Hajun's voice shook with controlled, burning rage. "But I had a wife, a pregnant wife, and you paid her $5 million to disappear, to raise my child alone while I was forced to live in ignorance." He slid the bank records across the table, revealing the massive transaction. Several board members gasped audibly. "This is a private family matter." His mother tried to interject, her voice high-pitched. "It has nothing to do with the governance of this company, doesn't it?" Hajun turned to her, his gaze relentless. "You manipulated your own son, deliberately erased his memories, stole 5 years of his life and his daughter's life. What kind of leadership allows that level of barbarity? What kind of moral compass guides this company when our own chairman orchestrates hit-and-run accidents and bribes witnesses?" Before anyone could respond, the conference room doors dramatically swept open. Hajun's grandmother walked in, imperious and utterly dignified despite her 83 years. Behind her was Ariana in a wheelchair, still wearing a hospital gown covered by a heavy blanket, pushed by a dutiful nurse. And beside them, holding her great-grandmother's hand with quiet certainty, was Jia. The room fell into an echoing silence that swallowed the air. "Halmoni," Hajun breathed, stunned. "What are you doing here?" "Fixing my son's catastrophic mistakes." Hajun's grandmother's voice sliced through the silence like cold steel, since apparently he never learned the difference between good business and outright barbarity. "Mother, you shouldn't be here." Chairman Kong stood, vibrating with rage and fear. "This doesn't concern you." "My great-granddaughter concerns me," the grandmother stated firmly, moving closer to the table with Jia still clutching her hand. The daughter-in-law I loved concerns me. And the grandson you tried to lobotomize with manipulation and insidious lies very much concerns me. She placed a folder of her own onto the table. It was even thicker than Hajuin's. I have been meticulously documenting everything for 5 years. Every payment, every lie, every person you bribed or threatened to keep Hajuin from remembering the truth. She looked pointedly at the board members. Did you know the chairman has been systematically embezzling company funds to pay for this extensive conspiracy? $3 million over 5 years, all used to keep his son in line and maintain illegal power. If you're watching this and your heart is racing, if you can barely breathe waiting to see what happens next, do me one favor before we continue. Subscribe right now, because this ending will restore your faith that truth eventually wins, that love conquers, and that families can heal even from the deepest, most calculated wounds. Don't miss this final moment of reckoning. That's a lie, Chairman Kong shouted, his voice cracking. Mother, you're senile. You don't know what you're saying. I am 83, not stupid. She opened her folder calmly. I have notarized witness statements from the truck driver, full of remorse and willing to testify immediately. I have recordings of your phone calls with various board members plotting how to permanently remove Hajuin should his memory ever return. And I have this. She pulled out a single age document. The original unaltered will of Hajuin's grandfather, the company founder. Your father left the company directly to Hajuin. Not to you. To his grandson, with the stipulation that you could only manage it until Hajuin turned 30 or married, whichever came first. Hajuin got married 6 years ago. The company should have transferred legally to him then, but you hid his marriage. You erased it from all records. You have been running a company that was not legally yours to control for 6 years. The board erupted into chaos. Accusations flew across the table. Chairman Kong's face cycled from pale to fiery red to an unhealthy purple. Hajuin just stood there, stunned into silence. His grandmother had been gathering evidence for half a decade, silently protecting him even when he didn't know he needed protecting. I vote for the immediate removal of Chairman Kong. One board member yelled out above the din: embezzlement, fraud, and illegal control of company assets. Seconded. Another voice rang out decisively. All in favor? Hajuin's grandmother asked calmly, raising her own hand. Every single hand went up, save for Chairman Kong's and his wife's. The motion passes. Hajuin's grandmother turned to her son with something akin to deep pity in her eyes. You destroyed your relationship with your only son for a company that was never legally yours to control. Was it truly worth it, son? Chairman Kong said nothing. He simply stood, a broken, defeated figure, and walked out of the room, his wife hurrying silently after him. The meeting immediately dissolved into a frenzy of activity. Lawyers were called in. Documents were signed. In the span of 30 minutes, Hajuin went from potentially losing everything to controlling the entire sprawling enterprise. But he barely noticed the corporate turmoil. He was already walking toward Ariana, still sitting quietly in the wheelchair, tears streaming freely down her exhausted face. You shouldn't have come here, he whispered, kneeling beside her. You just had brain surgery. I couldn't let you face them alone. Ariana's hand lifted, touching his cheek tenderly. Not again. Jia squeezed between them, looking up at her father. Appa, does this mean the bad people can't hurt us anymore? Yes, sweetheart. Hajuin pulled both of them into a tight embrace, their lives converging finally. No one can hurt us anymore. His grandmother approached, leaning lightly on her cane, a triumphant yet soft look in her eyes. Well, now that that's settled, perhaps we could finally discuss the wedding arrangements. Halmoni were already married. Hajuin stood, carefully helping Ariana rise from the chair. A courthouse wedding 6 years ago absolutely does not count. His grandmother said, her eyes twinkling. My great-granddaughter deserves to see her parents marry properly, with only the family who actually loves them present. Ariana laughed through her tears, a delicate, shaky sound. I just had brain surgery, Grandma. I'm hardly in shape for wedding planning. Then we'll wait. Hajuin took her hand, firm and possessive. However long you need, a month, 6 months, a year. I'm not going anywhere this time. 2 months later, on a perfect Saturday afternoon, Hajun stood at another altar. But this time, everything was fundamentally different. The location was a small, sun-drenched garden chapel nestled far from the city. Not a grand, ostentatious cathedral. The guest list numbered 30, not 500, only the people who truly mattered. Ariana's family had flown in from America. Hajun's grandmother sat beaming in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief, and Jia, wearing a white flower girl dress adorned with embroidered yellow sunflowers, bounced excitedly. Ariana walked down the aisle, not in a restricting designer gown, but in a simple, flowing white dress she had chosen herself. Her hair was worn natural, wild curls adorned with fresh flowers. She was exquisite, absolutely radiant with happiness and health. And this time, when Hajun looked at her, he didn't see a stranger. He saw his wife, the mother of his child, the woman he had irrevocably fallen in love with twice. The vows were deeply personal. Ariana went first, her voice clear and strong. Hajun, I honestly never thought I'd get this moment back. I spent 5 years loving a ghost, raising our daughter alone, staring at photos of a man who didn't remember my name. She smiled through sudden tears. But here is what I learned. Love isn't just about remembering the past. It's about choosing every single day in the present. You chose me at the docks when you ran from your wedding. You chose me in the hospital when I was helpless. You chose me in that boardroom when you risked everything. And I choose you, every single version of you. The man who loved me before, and the incredible man who is learning to love me again today. It was Hajun's turn. His voice was thick with emotion and overwhelming gratitude. I can't promise I will ever remember everything we had. The doctors maintain those original memories might be gone forever. But Ariana, every day with you is a new, precious memory. Every morning I wake up beside you. Every time I watch Gia's face light up when I walk into the room. Every moment is priceless because I now know exactly how easily I could have lost all of this. I choose you. I choose our daughter. I choose the life we are building together, and I will keep choosing it every day for the rest of my life. I now pronounce you husband and wife again, the minister said with a warm smile. They kissed, long and deeply, while Jia cheered loudly and his grandmother openly wept. And for the first time in 6 agonizing years, everything felt perfectly, beautifully right. The reception was held at a small, intimate restaurant. Nothing grand, just good food and the people who truly loved them. Hajun danced with Ariana, holding her close as a pianist played soft jazz. Any regrets? She whispered against his chest. Only that I lost 5 years of our time. Hajun pulled back slightly to look into her eyes. But maybe, my love, we needed those years apart. You needed the solitude to become strong enough to raise Jia alone. I needed to be utterly broken and betrayed to truly see how empty my old life was. Maybe we had to fall apart completely just to come back together like this. Quite the philosophical turn for a man who used to measure his worth in market shares. Hajun's grin was wide and genuine, a stark contrast to the strained smiles of his past life. I'm a photographer now, remember? A man of light and composition. He paused for dramatic effect. We opened Sunflower Studios last week. Co-owners? Ariana corrected him playfully, looping her arm through his. Equal partners in everything, he affirmed, spinning her gently until her cocktail dress flared out. She laughed, a rich, melodic sound that seemed to chase away the last vestiges of the evening's formality and fill the elegant space with pure joy. Not to be left out, little Jia raced across the polished floor, demanding her turn. Hajun scooped her up easily, planting a kiss on her cheek. They danced then, a clumsy, joyful trio, revolving around the center of the living room. A family finally, unequivocally complete. Hours later, the last echoes of laughter faded as the final guests departed. Jia was tucked soundly into bed in what had transformed from Hajun's cold, minimalist apartment into a warm, genuine home. A stark contrast to the sterile, impersonal penthouse he had inhabited before the accident. Ariana and Hajun stood side by side on the balcony, gazing out at the vast, glittering Seoul skyline. "I have something for you," Hajun murmured, reaching into the pocket of his tailored jacket. He withdrew a small, leather-bound photo album. "I've been working on it." Ariana took it, her fingers tracing the cover. Inside, he had curated a collection of images taken over the last 2 months, moments captured with the practiced eye of a professional, but the heart of a devoted man. Ariana caught mid-laugh during a chaotic breakfast. Jia, her face smeared with dirt, conquering the slide at the local park. A tender snapshot of Ariana and Jia, curled up, fast asleep on the living room sofa beneath a cozy blanket. And, perhaps most precious, candid photos from weekly family dinners shared with his delighted grandmother. They were glimpses of their authentic, messy, beautiful new life together. "I can't remember the details of our old story," Hajun confessed, his voice thick with emotion. "The parts that were erased. But I'm documenting our new one. Every single moment so that we never, ever forget again." Ariana felt tears sting her eyes. She clutched the small album like a lifeline. "It's perfect, Hajun. You are perfect." "I'm really not," he countered, gently wiping a tear trail from her cheek with his thumb. "I'm still trying to learn how to be the kind of father Jia deserves. I'm still figuring out how to run the company ethically, shifting decades of bad habits. And I am still trying to heal from 5 years of unknowingly living a profound lie. Then we'll figure it out together," she promised, leaning in to kiss him. A deliberate, deep affirmation. No more secrets. No more lost memories creating shadows. Just us moving forward, step by steady step. Just us, he agreed. They remained there, wrapped in each other's arms, silent witnesses to the glittering expanse of the city below. In the vast, complex web of Seoul, Chairman Kung was finally facing the consequences of his ambition, bogged down in complex fraud charges. Gi, relieved of the duty to marry for business, had found happiness and married someone she truly loved. The company, freed from the toxic control of the past, was thriving and stable under the new, ethical leadership Hajun had established. And in the next room, a little girl slept soundly and securely, finally having both of her parents under one loving roof. Hajun looked down at Ariana, feeling a profound sense of peace. He might never retrieve the fragmented memories of falling in love with her the first time, a whirlwind romance obscured by amnesia. But falling in love with her now, witnessing her resilience, her unwavering grace, and her fierce, undeniable devotion to their daughter, that was a magic entirely its own. It proved that some love stories weren't just granted a second chance. They were fundamentally reborn. Some memories forged in hardship were worth far more than the pain of what had been lost. And sometimes, the life you couldn't remember was exactly the life you were always meant to live. 6 months later, amidst the comforting clutter of their new life, Ariana discovered she was pregnant again. When she quietly shared the news with Hajun, he wept openly. They were not tears of grief or confusion this time, but overwhelming, cleansing joy. This time he vowed he would be present for everything. Every doctor's appointment, every nervously anticipated ultrasound, every single moment of this pregnancy. This time he would make memories he could hold on to. They welcomed their son, whom they named Mijun. When Hajun finally held the tiny, swaddled weight of his newborn son in the hospital room, Ariana exhausted yet radiant, smiling up at him, and Jia carefully reaching out to touch her baby brother's minuscule hand, he paused. He thought about the other man he might have been. The one who married Jivun purely for status, who managed his father's corrupt company, who lived in a gilded cage of empty luxury, forever ignorant of the profound connection he was missing. Instead, he was right here, in a simple, regular hospital room. Not some opulent private suite, with a wife who was his intellectual equal and emotional anchor, a daughter who adored him fiercely, and a newborn son who would grow up knowing his father's face and love from his very first breath. "Thank you," he whispered, his throat tight, leaning down to press a kiss to her forehead. "For what?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "For waiting, for hoping, for insisting on keeping the old photos safe, for never giving up on us, even during the darkness when I didn't even remember there was an us to give up on. Ariana looked at him, her eyes filled with boundless love. Some things are worth waiting for, Hajuin. And as Hajuin looked across the hospital bed at his family, his whole, beautifully imperfect, entirely complete unit, he knew she was fundamentally right. Some things were worth fighting for. Some things were worth everything. The end. If this journey of loss, rediscovery, and radical forgiveness touched your heart, if it reignited your belief in second chances, and in a love that thrives even when memories fade, please leave a comment, click like, and subscribe to follow future stories. Share this narrative with someone who needs the reminder that it's never too late to choose love, that even the deepest family wounds can heal, and that sometimes losing everything is the only way you discover what truly matters. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for believing in their enduring story.